Guys, I have wonderful news.
It's good. It's good.
Oh yes, for the first time this season proper. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome. Today, we will be going over my opening build of Season 5, and very specifically, this is what I would describe as the best build for you to get the best build in. If that makes sense. So you're transitioning from your leveling build into a new build at the start of Torment to progress to level 100 to fill your stash with uniques and solid aspects and affix gear, and you're ready to go into, well, whatever it is your heart desires. Whether that is even a more endgame version of what I'm about to show you, Axial, Conduit, Chain Lightning, or, of course, any of our many ridiculously strong options this time around. Honestly, I am struggling as someone who loves sorcerer theory crafting and creating builds from you guys, because there's so many exciting, powerful ones I want to try that I don't know what to do next as my first proper level 100 fully done endgame one. So please, if you have any particular requests, let me know. But for now, let's return our gaze to Chain Lightning in all its new glory. You get a pair of Axial Conduit legs from the season journey. At least I believe. I got one out the cache and it came account bound, and they said they were going to give us Chain Lightning gear, so that makes sense. And yeah, you slap them on and you're good to go. This thing absolutely roars. With all the fixes that we got in the patch for it to actually work properly, it's such a supremely effective build. Almost out the box. I've had to do some tweaks, some testing to make it, functional, as it's a very, very mana-hungry beast. But other than that, you are going to have some wonderful results. Effortlessly shredding Duriel early on, doing a tier 31 pit in like a minute. It can already go a lot higher than this, and cruise controlling through a tier 4 infernal hordes. Again, it could probably already do tier 5, despite the fact I'm not even level 85 yet. It really is just so perfect for lots of enemies. They just automatically die for existing near you, and it is automatically in the truest sense, because your Chain Lightnings are constantly coming in and out, targeting, bouncing. You don't even really need to put much thought into where you actually fire the initial Chain Lightning to get this up and running. It's so satisfying. Hell, you can fire a couple Chain Lightnings out, get on your mount, and then just run through Helltide, and it will automatically kill everything that you pass by, and then your pet will pick up the cinders. It's sort of a cheat code, which is why I really can't stress enough, it gives you such an instant power boost to go to this build in early Torment and work on it, that there really is seriously no better option for the build to get your ideal build. You essentially couldn't ask for a more instantly powerful, fun, and most importantly, speed farming champion of a build to get you going in Season 5, and I am so both happy with Chain Lightning Axial Conduit, but also my take on it here. I think it has huge potential in like the ultra endgame with perfect min-maxed gear that can solve a few more mana problems, but other than that, yeah, you are going to be rocking instantly. I'm already hitting for numbers with the explosion of the Chain Lightning bolts once it's drained enough mana that would make the end of Season 4 blush, which is really sad to say, actually, when I put it like that. But that all said then, how are we actually setting this up? How doth it work? Let's go over it. Normally, I would start with the skill tree, but I want to start today with an actual explanation of how Axial Conduit literally works, because I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, this is the worst, and I think it comes from a misunderstanding of its raw functionality. So let's do that. Here we are then with Axial Conduit. So Chain Lightning will alternate between circling around you and doing its usual bouncing, and every time it comes back to you to circle, it will take 6 mana from you, up to 66. Which means if you only have one Chain Lightning out, it's going to go back and forth 10 times before it's ready to explode on the next one. What that actually looks like in practice is this. It will rotate, seek, rotate, seek, rotate, seek, and each time it comes back to me, it takes 6 mana, and then eventually it's going to pop, and that lightning pop is where the damage is. That's what we're trying to make happen as much as possible. So if I do just 2 of them going, every time they come back, as you can see, my mana is really struggling to just about keep up with them. So you kind of want to be in a situation where you don't have more Chain Lightnings going than your mana regen can sustain. And the reason for that is, look what happens if I just spam Chain Lightning and run out of mana. They're all gone. No explosions, no damage, nothing. If I just stand next to him and cast, well, we might get the occasional detonation. There was one. Alright, that's okay. But that's not exactly crazy, is it? Just nothing is happening. Whereas what you want to do is make sure that you never have more Chain Lightnings than you can handle with your current build. There is a reason they've added a counter that shows you how many Chain Lightnings you currently have out, because that represents how many times 6 mana drains you're having happen constantly every second. And if that outdoes your mana pool, well then, goodbye to your Chain Lightning bombs. So if I manage it properly and actually stand here at a good distance, not doing too many, looking at the count on my bars, about 2, about 3, that's about right. You see how many more explosions of lightning we actually get. It's happening pretty consistently, and that is where the damage is. This is the kind of art and elegance to playing this build, and I think a lot of people are missing that, and they're just standing there spam casting Chain Lightning and wondering why they're not doing any damage and Axial sucks. And that's something I really wanted to get ahead of and really stress. So when you're actually playing this build, then you're using all your abilities, that's all well and good. You want to keep looking at how many Chain Lightnings you have out. For instance, right now I have 1, I have 2, I'm going to go up to 3, and you never want to have more than your mana pool can handle. For me, currently in my current gear, about 3 Chain Lightnings on a single target is where it's at. So I won't deliberately cast another one until it goes down to 2, and I have the spare mana to make it happen. That will result in much more damage than if I was to just spam cast them until I run out of mana, which results in pathetic damage. When you have loads of enemies and you're fighting a big wave, a room of them, like infernal hordes, you can be a little bit more aggressive with how many you've got out, because there's a lot more bouncing going on, there's a lot more enemies to make bouncing happen. You see I can comfortably go up to like 5 Chain Lightnings draining, and that's causing a lot of explosions, so that's really nice, and you just have to play it by ear. But the bottom line is, and I wish I could say some like really simple way to just make it click and happen, but just don't have more Chain Lightnings going than your mana pool can handle, and it will probably be between 2 and 4 depending on your gear at this stage of the game, and that's why the counter is there, so you can keep track of that and don't throw too many out. See here, you just want to let it consistently stay at 3 Chain Lightnings, and that is about right. This rhythm here, it looks like I'm not spending mana, but I'm just about keeping on top of it, letting explosions happen as often as they can. So, with that all said then, and I hope it did come across okay, let's get into the build. Skill tree then is up, and I'm so excited to be bringing you the first Season 5 Sorcerer build. I can't wait to bring you all of them. I love this. Okay, so, yes, 2 points into your Firebolt, which this time around is indeed going to be your first enchantment. We need the burning synergy, but we also need enemies to be burning for our main survivability engine. Because if there's one thing I forgot to mention in the introduction, is that this build is so tanky. You are like nigh unkillable. The second I even reached Torment, I could tank everything without having to move or dodge, whereas the people that I was leveling with, Cotton and Hollow, were getting one shot left and right. It was hilarious. In any case, then we go over to your cause, where we want to fill up Chain Lightning, then we want to go Enhanced, and as much as I would love to take the 30% more damage, the mana just doesn't allow it. We need crackling energy to fuel us, so we get Destructive, and we produce a lot of crackling energy. Then we go over to your defensives, and of course, to stress again, this build is set up with the intention of you not having perfect endgame gear, even being level 100 yet. The perfect min-maxed version of Axial will look a lot different, but also it won't be achievable until weeks of gear farming have taken place. In any case, yeah, teleport, then over to Enhanced, and then finally Shimmering. The DR is nice, and we don't need the help of crackling energy, as Chain Lightning produces easily enough. Then we get full into Glass Cannon. We are so tanky, this is just such free damage. Then we get Attunement just to reset our teleport and Ice Armor. It helps out. We're not overflowing with cooldown reduction yet. Then Ice Armor, which is our new premium survivability tool after they murdered Flame Shield's infiniteness, though we'll still see if it ends up making its way back into builds later on. It's not impossible. I mean, it's still a good ability, right? We still used Flame Shield before Season 4 happened, but it's just not necessary at the moment, mainly because of the aspect tied to Ice Armor to give it such good damage reduction, and it's also a hefty shield now off the bat with the 56% of maximum, though I do miss it gaining shield as you did damage. In any case, because this build spends so much mana, having this permanently up is both entirely possible and really good, because we get that mana regen, and then Shimmering here means that we power down the cooldown to always have it available, because our Chain Lightnings are constantly draining mana, which reduces the cooldown of it fantastically. Then we head over to our Conjuration, where we get the usual double defensives of Mana Shield and Protection. Then we want 3 out of 3 in Conjuration Mastery, mainly for the movement speed, damage, and mana regen. I realize that's all 3 of them. This is just a ridiculously strong passive now. Though the mana regen especially, of course, in a mana-hungry build, and the movement speed into buffed Essus for more crit, it's just lovely. We get Ice Blades, along with Enhanced, and then finally Summoned to help with our cooldown reduction, because again, we don't have loads of it yet at this stage of the season, although even if we did, we'd still use it, because it's phenomenal. And that makes our second enchantment slot. Essentially, we want Unstable Currents up as much as possible, and the extra cooldown reduction helps with that. In a more endgame world, it's entirely possible we use Lightning Spear enchantment to summon more of them from all the crackling energy we're picking up to get more stacks of Conjuration Mastery, but that needs a little bit more testing. In any case, we do want Lightning Spear, then Enhanced, and then finally Invoked, so it stuns everyone. Over to our Mastery, where we want 3 out of 3 in Icy Veil. This, coupled with Protection and our Ice Armor uptime, means that, yeah, we are just permanently covered in massive barriers, and it's really, really nice to have. It's both a defensive and an offensive buff because of something like Conceited always being active. We want to get Inner Flames and then 3/3 in Devouring Blaze with that lovely burning crit synergy, of which this build is a burning crit build, and then Static so we can get full Invigorating Current, so every crackling energy is worth 12 mana, and we can have some really big burst windows with a sea of it on the floor, really churning out those Chain Lightnings. Then to the ultimate side of things, initially causing Currents to get 3 out of 3 Electrocution, just for more damage reduction. Then we want Unstable Currents alongside the attack speed, very, very nice to have. And then this, Fiery Surge into Endless Pyre, just so we can get to Warmth. I currently only have 6 out of 3, which is still a quarter of your health every second for standing near a boss. Do you know how ridiculous that is? Or even just the every enemy nearby 6%? In like infernal hordes, there's a bajillion enemies. You just can't die. You need to be one shot or you can't die. It's so delicious, and if it wasn't already super worth going into Burning and Fireball and everything for Devouring Blaze, honestly it's kind of worth it now just for Warmth, especially with what this build is geared for, which is starting Torment on your way to 100, on your way to farming a perfect endgame build. This is just delicious. Then we get our key passive, finally, which is Via's Mastery. Its upgraded form is lovely, loads of damage, loads of survivability. Yeah, this thing is phenomenal. And that then is that. On to the gear that you're wanting then. With your gems, you want intelligence in your armor, as our damage from intelligence is just so good now. We want armor in our jewelry to make the armor cap as soon as we can, and then finally critical strike damage in our weapons. So, talking of weapon, either sword or wand is fine, and then we want ourselves Unbroken Tether for the chance for Chain Lightning to chain an additional 5 times. We then also want ourselves Shredding Blades for the huge increase to vulnerable damage. Seriously, this build ends up at like, what, 600% critical strike damage, 400% vulnerable damage? Yeah, that is very, very tasty. Then you want yourself the main aspect to get 1.5 times on your amulet, which is Lightning Rod. An extra up to 120% against bosses is really good, as single target damage needs the most help in this build while you are still managing your mana. Then we want the classic in Conceited, just more damage all the time, especially here as we really do have barriers all the time. And then we want the new premium defensive aspect in Snowveiled for that 25% DR when we get ice armor, and then finally Orange Herald, a new aspect to lower the cooldown on unstable currents from our chain lightnings that are going out. It just helps a lot. Then for this empty ring slot, you want to choose one of two aspects. Either Umbral, so when we stun an enemy with our lightning spears that are flying around, we gain mana back. This is best in like infernal hordes where there's 1,000 enemies in the room and you're CCing people constantly with lightning spears, with your chance to immobilize or chance to freeze tempers on your gear. You essentially can't run out of mana, and it makes it a farming machine that just lets you spam out chain lightnings. Against bosses though, it doesn't really help, of course, so in that instance you do want recharging, as you might have expected, so every bounce gives you mana back. Obviously in the pit you can't change gear, so I would conservatively go with recharging, but in infernal hordes do the waves with Umbral and then do the council with recharging, and you are good to go. So, with that said then, uniques. We want Esu's Heirloom on our feet for all of that lovely critical goodness, and then we want the star of the show, Axial Conduit, as our legs. Finally, at this stage, just Tal Rashes as your ring slot in its new buff form. The non-physical is wonderful for the Paragon node that we'll get to, and of course the increased damage, lovely as well. That then is that. And technically, if you don't have Tal Rashes yet, you just want to wear both of these rings at once, and then you don't have to choose. So, affix-wise then, health is obviously nice when you are new to Torment, so you're a lot harder to kill, but past that, you want the following. Cooldown reduction, attack speed, critical strike chance, ranks of Devouring Blaze and Conjuration Mastery, ranks of Lightning Bolt, and then your intelligence. Following that, it's just things like critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and so on and so forth. On the defensive side of things, you want to get at least 1 mana per second roll across your chest and your helm, ideally both, and then you want to make sure you have either a greater affix armor roll or 2 armor rolls total so you can actually make the armor cap. Then you want to get as much all resist as you can, so you do end up with your full resist like I have here, though most of that is carried by the Paragon board, so don't worry too much, and then you are about good. I'm sitting at this with 30% crit chance, but that's about Esu's doing its thing and ramping up with Conjuration Mastery and so on, so I am quite happy with that. For your tempering then, on your weapons, you want chance for Chain Lightning to cast twice, and you want critical strike damage or vulnerable damage. Technically, one of the cast twice can be poison or shadow damage for the stack of Tal Rashes. You might actually find if you get too many cast twice, you end up having too many Chain Lightnings accidentally and draining your mana, so you do want to think about balancing that, but they're about equivalent. Then on any offensive slot that you can get, it is just that critical strike damage or vulnerable damage. Critical strike is better, but if you're low on rerolls and you got vulnerable, that is not the end of the world at all. On your rings and anywhere that you can get resource, you want that critical or vulnerable damage alongside cooldown reduction on your ultimate. I have it here. I got bricked on ultimate restores mana, which actually isn't the worst. It's like a full Tibalt's full mana restore every time I press unstable currents, and I have actually been quite liking it, but that should be cooldown reduction on ultimate. On the defensive side of things, you want to get ranks to warmth always this season. That's pretty much going to happen in every single build, and then your chance to immobilize or freeze are the two ideal ones. Immobilize for Devouring Blaze, and freeze is just very, very nice. That then is that. And Masterworking wise, if you do want to go a little bit in on this, of course, Axial is the big one for that resource gen and maximum resource affix, as that really helps the most, just as a note. Paragon is all that remains then. Follow me point for point, starting with the baseboard, because obviously, we're starting with the baseboard. Up to the left to get your all resist, and then just a little bit extra too. Take this away when you have capped resistances without it. Essentially, just keep peeling back points as you get more and more resist from intelligence until you don't need these and can save the points, but for now, you most likely will. Then we go right up through Elementalist, then continuing on to the glyph slot, where we have our old friend Reinforced. It's not level 15 yet for me, so it's not got the extra radius, so this willpower here isn't helping activate it along with this one, but this is the correct layout that you will want. To grab your Erudite, the willpower next to it, and then head up left through Elemental Balance into, once again, a familiar face, our Enchantment Master board. Going straight up left initially to grab Elementalist, the non-physical is very important, as is the max life, then straight across through the Intelligence, down into Elemental Balance, and then lastly to the Glyph, where Elementalist finds its usual place in the world. Activate it with the intelligence from Erudite and the couple nodes around, and then we continue out into the next board, which for once isn't Burning Instinct, primarily because I'm not level 100 and don't have all the Paragon points, but also because of the buffed Frigid Fate. The fact that this can now go up to 60% multiplicative is fantastic, and getting this going and online early is really important. That's why Tal Rashes is so extra good early too, because of the huge amount of non-physical it now gives you. So we want to head straight across it to this vulnerable damage, down to the glyph where we will put charged. It's just an extra 15% multiplicative for existing, so why the hell not? And then we can go over to chilling and activate it up. Then we want to head up through weakness round to Frigid Fate, and that's all well and good. Then firstly we want to continue up top and get guarded on the way by into your next board, which will finally be your Burning Instinct. Arranged with the glyph bottom right like this, straight to the glyph where destruction is found. Activated a bit jankily because it's not got the radius yet, but you know how it goes with this. Get your cinders, get your smoldering embers, and then we can head into the next board, but we don't do that yet. Firstly, you want to take the down path from your charged glyph in Frigid Fate all the way to this, your Static Surge. Arrange it so the legendary node is close to the gate, go right via Overwhelming, as we might as well grab it, and then, yes, get it. The permanent source of vulnerability is nice, though Lightning Spear and Ice Blades does a good job of that, but just getting the mana back helps the build flow and play, and having this online early is where it's at. If you were like level 55 and had very limited Paragon points, getting Static Surge should be your priority over anything else. Then we can go all the way back to here and head into the next board, which is going to be your Elemental Summoner, just to get another glyph online for now. I know I always get requests to finish Paragon boards once people get past where I'm at in these videos, so don't worry, there will be a perfect endgame min-maxed version of Axial Chain Lightning that will happen, so do look out for it. That said then, we are done for now. In my opinion, one of the most fun and powerful instantly incredible builds you could use for all of your torment needs to 100, and even then, if you want to stick in it and just improve it, you're going to have a great time. I hope you do find this useful, and if you are someone that was thinking Axial was underwhelming, I hope that has helped too. For now then, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.